Hi everyone. So I get lots of emails about radiators leaking and what ways to fix them. Now most of the time the problem is radiator valve that is leaking. There are times when that's not the case, but in most instances it is the radiator valve. So let's just take a look at it first and see what can be done. Firstly, we've got the thermostatic rad valve. And if it is leaking down from the top inside of here, the housing running down, there's virtually nothing you can do except replace the radiator valve. If it's either of these two joints, no problem, we can sort those out, or even that joint into the radiator. But at the end of the day, if it's leaking down from the valve inside, there's nothing you can do with it, okay? But they're not usually the ones that leak that often. It's usually these ones over here. That is one of these. I've gone up to the upstairs radiator to show you it's a little bit more easier, because the one downstairs has got a little drain off attached to it. It's not so common. So usually if it's leaking around here, take the top off. 9 times out of 10 the leak will be from this here. This is a little packing nut gland. Now I'll give it a video to fix it. It's quite easy, I've done loads, but basically it just entails undoing this nut and packing it with some PTFE tape. You don't even have to turn the valve off or the water off to do it. Okay, it's that simple. The other one it can be is this joint on here, and sometimes it just needs nipping up with a spanner. But if you do that, make sure you hold against with something here. You don't want to spin it round. If you go like this with a spanner, and then you'll find you bend the valve on the pipe. You don't want that to happen. So hold against and give it a nip up. Normally that does the job, but at worst, if it doesn't, you can turn the valve off here, turn it off the other end, drain the radiator and put some PTFE tape around this joint. The other one is this one over here, a bit harder. Again, you can try nipping it up. Don't get it hold against with a pair of footprints or something, Stilsons, and tighten the nut. And usually 9 times out of 10 it stops it. If it doesn't, once again, you're going to have to undo it. Now there might be too much pressure there when you undo that, because it could be a rad on the bottom of the system downstairs. So if that is the case, you will have to unfortunately drain the system out. Unless you've got enough leg and you could put a freezer kit on it here and just turn it off at the other end, then you could isolate it and undo that joint, PTFE tape around it and do it back up, and that would be it. The other leak you can get is from the towel that goes into the radiator there. If you get a leak there, once again it's easy. You can turn the water off here, turn it off at the other end of the radiator, drain the water out, unscrewing it loosely, undo this joint first. It'll all go into a little container, empty it out. Once that's undone, then you can unscrew the towel out of the radiator here, get it out and get it right out, some PTFE tape fresh around the thread. Take all the old stuff off, wrap it round nice and new and screw it back in, and then do the joint back up, refill the radiator. Don't forget, if you are draining the radiators, you will need to top it up if you've got a combi boiler, so don't forget that, because you will lose a bit of pressure. There's something else to bear in mind. But we use with an F&E system, of course, you haven't got to worry about that. But that's the most common leaks. Now the one I've been asked about the other day was that she had a leak from the side of the radiator. Now if it's a hole in the rad, there's very little can be done about it, because unless you're a good welder and you fancy taking the rad outside and welding it up, there's nothing I know on this earth that can stop a leak that you can put on it. People think you can patch it up with something, mastic and all the rest of it, sealants, leak sealers of all types and sorts I've seen. Sheer problem is that not only have you got to put up with a lot of heat, the thing gets really hot, and then it gets really cold when it cools down again. That's one problem. The other one being is expansion. When it gets hot, it expands, and when it gets cold, it cools back down and shrinks again. So those two things mean virtually impossible to get something to stick on there that will go with it and actually hold water. Anything that has been tried, I've tried some different things, they look like they're going to hold at first, and then within a couple of weeks the leak starts back up again, doesn't it? So if it is a leak from a little tiny hole or place round on the radiator, you've got to say just throw the rad away and get another one. They're not that expensive and not worth the hassle, honestly, of trying to fix them. Lastly, of course, there are instances of the bleed valves leaking here on the top of the radiator, which you can usually quickly see. Again, it's very easy. Turn the rad valves off either end and unscrew it and put some tape around it. If it's the actual bleed valve, then that is a different problem. Sometimes if they're in a fixed type, you can't do anything about them, and if they're fixed into the radiator itself with no thread, it's a case of a rad again, I'm afraid. You also get caps at the other end, which can also leak if it's a steel rad type like this, like a lot of them do. This is a typical usual bleed valve one, and I've got a self bleeder on the other end, but actually works very well. I didn't want to change it. But again, just put your finger under there, just you'll feel if there's a leak there or not. And again, very easy fix, but normally it's the rad valve to look for. Okay, so that's about it, just a little quick one there. All those fixes that I've showed you up there that you can do, I've got videos on my channel. I'll give you the links to some of them, but they're pretty simple and easy to do. The only one I haven't got, I think, is screwing the thread into the actual radiator itself, but it's pretty easy to do. So other than that, simple job, no big deal. Okay, that's it then, all my stuff, you know, to go, usual place, Derek from 33. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye bye.